Today, we are here to witness the signing of agreements between the Government of Dominica and the World Bank, through which financing will be provided to support the housing sector and the agricultural sector. With an amount of US 40 million, it is expected that under the housing program, up to 1,700 families will receive subsidies for rebuilding houses to the required specifications as prescribed post-Hurricane Maria. An estimated 4,900 farmers and fishers will receive support under the agriculture program to help restore livelihoods in that sector and to introduce and adopt climate resilient practices. An amount of 25 million US is being provided to agriculture. The implementation of these programs will be supported with technical assistance to the respective ministries in the form of project implementation units. It is therefore with pleasure that I welcome everyone to this event. A special welcome to the Cabinet of Dominica. Your presence demonstrates your support of these programs. A special welcome is also extended to the World Bank, and in particular to Mr. Sin Said Khan. We are aware that you have made every effort to have these programs approved by the World Bank Board in the shortest possible time. We express our gratitude to you and your team. And to all of you, we say welcome. At this time, I invite the Honorable Johnson Drago, Minister in the Ministry of Housing and Lands, to provide some remarks.
Thank you very much, Finance Secretary Mrs. Edwards. Let me recognize in a very special way this morning the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, the Honorable Reginald Ostry, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, other Cabinet colleagues, Ms. Tassim Saj Khan, Director for the Caribbean and Latin America and the Caribbean region, Ambassador Edward Lambert, Principal Advisor to the Prime Minister, Ambassador Steve Farrell, Secretary to the Cabinet, Permanent Secretaries and other government officials, Professor Avinash Prasad, Economic Advisor, members of the media, Dominicans listening via radio and social media. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, on 18th September 2017, that is 7 months ago, Hurricane Maria ravaged and severely damaged the human settlement and natural environment of this country, which disrupted lives of residents of this country beyond measure of any past natural disaster. Thank God we are here today after living through this turmoil. We owe to the grace of God and the natural inherent resilience of our people and the tremendous outpouring of help and interest of our regional and international agencies and governments. This tremendous outpouring of support and assistance was consistent and effective during the relief stage, and that same spirit and determination continued on to bring hope and comfort to our people. Today, we are able to bear witness to this official signing of the loan agreement between the government of Dominica and the World Bank. This signing is a tangible demonstration of the source and stream funding secured for financing the recovery process for rebuilding this country. It is a solid indication that we are well on our way to recovering and rebuilding our beloved country. The government of Dominica, under the able leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, has made the deliberate and bold decision to building back this country better and stronger. We shall embrace the opportunity and gigantic challenge to changing this adversity brought onto this land around and make Dominica the #1 climate resilient country of the world. Thanks to the invaluable support and contribution of international development agencies like the World Bank, who has reliably stood at our side throughout. For this, I wish on behalf of the government and people of Dominica to express our highest consideration and gratitude to the country manager and the entire staff and management of the World Bank. While we bear witness to today's signing ceremony, it is opportune to reflect and recall that on August 27, 2015, that is 2 years and 8 months ago, the tropical storm Erica did what we term colossal damage to this country. That phenomenal flood event devastated the country to the tune of EC 1.3 billion. I can assure you, however, that we are equally up to the task and are ready and energized to rebuild the country and in particular the damaged homes. According to the Post-Disaster Damage and Needs Assessment, PDNA, by the Ministry of Finance in collaboration with the World Bank, the damage sustained by the country was estimated at US 1.3 billion. Damage to the housing sector accounted for 38% of the sustained damage. The analysis of the building damage assessment illustrates that about 56% of houses sustained either minimal or minor damage, while 44.7% sustained major damage or worse, completely destroyed. And just about 0.3%, that is just about 77 homes, were insignificantly impacted. That means that 55% of the houses or 14,010 buildings could be quickly repaired and brought to a safe and comfortable level of the occupancy in these homes. That would result, therefore, into a tangible turning around of the severe housing situation emanating from Hurricane Maria. The other 44.7% of the homes, or 11,388 homes, will require redesigning and rebuilding and will be undertaken in a short to medium-term recovery response. The contribution and support of the World Bank will significantly add to the required response and action of the government in rebuilding this country. Let me again take the opportunity to thank the World Bank for all of its efforts. In my interaction with some of the staff, I recognized that they were here within the weeks early after the storm, and this also brought some humanitarian effort coming out to them. And we're happy that the World Bank is supporting us in this rebuilding effort, and we believe that we will succeed in making Dominica the first climate resilient country of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Drago, for your remarks. I now invite Honorable Reginald Austri, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, to provide some remarks. Mr. Austri.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Honorable Johnson Drago, other cabinet colleagues, Mr. Tashkin Said Khan, Ambassador Edward Lambert, Ambassador Steve Farrell, Permanent Secretaries, Professor Avinash, members of the media, Dominicans listening both at home and abroad. Permit me to take this opportunity as the newly appointed servant of the farmers of Dominica to thank the government of Dominica and the World Bank and its partners for continuing to recognize the tremendous contribution our farmers and fishers make in the provision of food security to our people and their contribution to the overall social and economic development of our country. Sorry. Recent statistics shows that 8 months after the passage of the most devastating hurricane recorded in modern history, the farmers of this country continue to demonstrate their resilience and their commitment to the task of feeding the nation and building back our beloved country. Apart from the large variety of fresh fruits and vegetables at our farmers market and various supermarkets, the record shows that post-Maria, over 266 acres of dasheen have been planted or replanted, 94.35 acres of yams, 105 acres of tanias, 74.36 acres of sweet potatoes, 17.49% acres of passion fruit, 13.22% ginger, 58.4% bananas, and 146.93 acres of plantains have been cultivated. Very significantly though, for the first time of production in white potatoes for the last 30 years, this year we harvested our biggest crop of 5,500 bags. And even we're
selling very well too.
And selling very well. And the plans are to double that amount before the end of this year. And as challenging as it is to collect data from the agricultural sector, which does not always reflect the true contribution of agriculture to our GDP, these figures, I'm sure, to you and to all of us, will be very, very encouraging. It is my understanding that the abattoir is reopened, processing local meat, poultry, and pork, and that fish catch is increasing. I understand that we have exported about 10,000 pounds so far, post-Maria. In that regard, I would like to recognize the hard work of the staff of the Ministry of Agriculture, and the resilience of our farmers. It shows that not even a hurricane like Maria can stop the commitment and the resilience of our farmers in this country. And also the leadership that my predecessor, Honorable Drago, has given to the sector is very, very commendable, especially in the post-Maria period. So with just this background as to where we are, where we came from in September, and where we are, I want to focus now on this very important ceremony that we have in here this morning. On October 9, 2017, the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica presented an official 2018, an official request for the post-disaster needs assessment, which henceforth will be called the PDNA. And the World Bank immediately responded by providing leadership and coordination in conjunction with the UN, the ECCB, the CDB, and the EU to assess the disaster impact of Hurricane Maria on the agricultural sector. The PDNA report has emphasized the importance of the role of agriculture in the recovery and reconstruction of Dominica's economy, following the assessment of the significant damage sustained, and the World Bank made a commitment in two critical areas. The first area was the Agricultural Emergency Response Grant, where $17 million EC was approved by the bank on December 2017. This, to our mind, has been successfully executed, with over 900 farmers receiving grant funding of up to $10,000 and 3,000 receiving grant funding of $3,000. We have had some challenges, but the dispute mechanism in the agreement has been activated, and I understand that we're making very good progress, and very shortly we'll be putting that matter to rest. The second major component is the Emergency Agricultural Livelihood and Climate Resilience Project, which from henceforth will be known as the EALCRP, for which $25 million, which will be signed today, has been committed by the bank and the government to facilitate the immediate recovery of the agricultural sector. Months of dedicated work has gone into the preparation of the documentation by the World Bank and by the technical staff of the ministry. And we're happy to say that in spite of the challenges, the post-Maria challenges, we are at a juncture today where we can sign this very important agreement. As Minister of Agriculture, I'm looking forward to the EALCRP in restoring the agricultural livelihood and enhancing the climate resilience of our farmers and fishers from all agricultural and fishing regions, and also to an extent the forestry division, which were affected by Hurricane Maria. The main component and subcomponents of the budget allocation of this project are as follows, and gives an indication of the intended interventions to get the sector back on its feet. These components would include briefly the restoration of crops. Some $8.8 million will be spent on that component. Then we have the restoration of livelihood and fishing systems, some $3.3 million. We have the climate resilience and commercialization, $1.4 million.
It's a U.S.
currency. U.S. currency. Component B would include the restoration of the key Ministry of Agricultural assets to some $7 million. Capacity building, $2.3 million. Component C would be the management structure, which would include the project management unit, where we intend to spend some $10.2 million, a total of $25 million. My expectation as Minister, therefore, is that in the short to medium term, is to see that the direct assistance to the beneficiaries of this project materializes in the following areas and categories. Crop and livestock farmers, fisher folks and producer organizations like the Pineapple Association, Fair Trade, Essential Oils, and other producer organizations and fishing cooperatives affected by the hurricane in the 10 parishes will get the much needed investment they require to restore their livelihood. We expect that some 4,900 individual farmers and fisher folks will benefit directly from this intervention. We have also made special consideration to our women farmers who make up at least 20% of the farming population, mainly in the rural communities, many of whom are single parents. And so we believe that that sector has to be looked after in a very special way, and provision is being made in this project for the livelihood of our women in agriculture. As Minister, I also want to place some emphasis on youth in agriculture for obvious reasons. And so I believe that we have to have a very dynamic agricultural program at our schools, so we can begin from a very early age to teach our children the social and economic benefits of the agricultural sector. I'm also looking forward to seeing a repositioning of the Ministry of Agriculture to effectively and efficiently deliver to the farmers. Because with all their best efforts, unless they can receive the services in time and on time, we're going to have a problem. And so the Ministry of Agriculture has to position itself or reposition itself in an effort to deliver to the farmers that we will be able to succeed in our efforts. We also have the issue of communication and data collection, very, very critical. And while some of the components will be addressed in the project, but the government will have to seek resources from outside to assist us in putting a very serious communication system and the data collection, which is going to be very important. Because many of the problems and challenges we've had after the hurricane, in terms of how we redirect the resources, is as a result of lack of or insufficient information to allow us to make proper decisions. And this we're not going to allow to happen. We have to look at our access to our farms, so feeder roads and access to farm is in fact going to be a major component. And I'd like to see a revisitation of the engineering unit which once existed within the Ministry of Agriculture. Even now, so, with the volume of work to be done on the island, heavy equipment, very, very difficult to come by. And I believe that if we have to respond in time to the needs of the farmers, we have to have on standby somewhere where we can find the equipment which we can deploy, which can be deployed at very short notice. Propagation of plants is going to be another very important component factor in moving forward with the sector. Food production, and for the first time, food has been included as a subcomponent, a subdivision of the ministry itself to emphasize the need for food security. And so I believe that we have to be able to distinguish between the food production unit of agriculture and the rest of the activities within the Ministry of Agriculture. The importation of selected tree crops is going to be critical. We're looking at importing some 20,000 coconut plants, some 8,000 citrus, some 5,000 coffee certified seeds, 40,000 certified avocados, coffee, cocoa. We expect that the citrus plants will be here during the course of this month. The order has been placed, and I believe that the plants have been paid for. So we're expecting that during this month, the citrus plants will be here. The coconut plants we expect by June. Coffee we expect by May. Avocado we expect by July. And all that is dependent on the weather conditions. With all these climate change issues, you can forecast, but you can't determine. But so all of this will depend. But this is our projection. But like I said, the climatic factors will influence the timing of these interventions. So we see with this $25 million US, a repositioning of the Ministry of Agriculture and a change in the structures, both in terms of the human resource capacity that exists, the limited amount that exists, and in terms of how we articulate and how we structure the farms. Like, for example, you have commercial farmers and subsistence farmers eating from the same pot, so to speak. This cannot be right. They have to be treated differentially. That you have to pay special attention to your commercial farmers, which will feed your export market and bring your foreign exchange, while the subsistence farmers will be given the challenge to feed the nation and to provide us with the food security that is necessary. And it's along those lines we see I'm not sure if it's a streamlining or strengthening or building up the capacities within those two separate areas, and to ensure that we can maximize and for once and for all put the agricultural sector where it rightly belongs. I'm not satisfied that we're giving sufficient credence, for want of a better word, to the contribution being made by the agricultural sector to the growth of the economy. And so I really want to thank the government of Dominica. We could have used that money for any other purpose. It did not have to go to housing and agriculture. But we see those two sectors in the economy as those really that we have to pay close attention to in that period moving forward. And I really like to thank the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for their vision in coming forward with those two projects, but more so to thank the World Bank for buying into the idea, of buying into the vision, and to put the resources, both human and financial resources, at the disposal of the government, that we can be here today signing these two very, very important agreements. So once again, I really want to thank you, and to say special thanks to our farmers. Next week, we have scheduled a series of Meet the Farmer Store, but it's more like Talk to the Farmer Store. I think too many times we impose on the farmers without hearing from them exactly what are some of the issues confronting them and how they believe that the government can intervene to make the task of food production a little easier. And so we begin a series of meetings and discussions next week, and we hope that coming out of those discussions, we'll be able to present to the cabinet a document as to how we see we're moving in terms of agriculture, maybe in the short period, 6 to 9 months, and allow for the long-term thinking through the project we have here to materialize. I know that a lot of work has been done. The project management unit has been identified. I understand in terms of reference for some of the the manager and the engineers, so the key personnel, that has already been done. And I understand that we are within the time frame as agreed upon between the government and the World Bank. I need to thank our consultants who have been working very, very closely with us in ensuring that we meet the timelines and we meet the conditionalities as outlined in the agreement between the World Bank and the government of Dominica. Once again, thank you very much, and we look forward to your continued assistance in that regard in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ostry. Ms. Tassin Saib Khan is the Regional Director for the Caribbean and Latin America and the Caribbean region at the World Bank. I now invite Ms. Khan to provide some remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Edwards, for this really very special event. Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Honorable Reginald Ostry, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, Honorable Johnson Drejo, Minister for the Ministry of Housing and Lands, other Cabinet colleagues, Ambassador Edward Lambert, Principal Advisor to the Prime Minister, Ambassador Steve Farrell, Secretary to the Cabinet, Permanent Secretaries and other government officials present here today, Professor Avinash Prasad, Economic Advisor, members of the media, and the most important individuals, men, women, families, youth, children listening via radio and social media. A very, very warm good morning from me personally and from my entire team present here and from the World Bank management officials in Washington. We bring you good wishes and all our best. As I listened to the extremely powerful presentations by the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Housing, I was reflecting back on September 2017 when I, courtesy of excellent technology and social media, watched the Honorable Prime Minister give an interview in the island of Antigua. I think you went there. A very powerful interview. And then I listened to the Honorable Prime Minister giving a speech at the United Nations General Assembly in September, where two things remained entrenched in my heart and in my mind. One was, you went to the United Nations with a spirit of optimism of moving forward. That came out very strongly in your rendition. Extremely different from when countries face such crisis. There is a feeling of being beleaguered and not knowing how to move forward. You had optimism. Number two, you said you gave an aspiration, a goal of being the first climate resilient nation in the world. And from the World Bank side, we felt, believed that we could be strong partners with Dominica, with the Dominicans moving forward on this. And that is why we are here today, along with my very special colleagues and our leadership team on agriculture, on disaster risk management, on environment and climate change. They're all here today. What I wanted to share, a lot has been said, and I'm sure the Honorable Prime Minister is going to share more of his aspirations with us this morning. I wanted to mention that this is, when there's a crisis of this nature, indeed it brings a huge amount of despair, desolation, and destruction. But at the same time, it is an opportunity also to rebuild back better. And if you ask me what is resilience, yesterday as I was arriving from the airport going to our hotel, and I was talking to the chauffeur who was driving. He said something which stuck in my mind. He said, you know, we have withstood Maria. Surely, if we have withstood that, we have the capacity to build back better and to be better. And I think that's the spirit that this nation has and these people have that will make us move forward. However, the spirit itself goes some ways, but the fact that there is a renewed zeal and commitment to look at resilience in a very broad way and to look at climate resilience in a very broad way is something that is an opportunity today. And we from the World Bank team, along with your other partners, I want to use this opportunity to express this very strong commitment to your constituents, your population, that we are there as your friends, not fair weather, but all weather friends. And I mean it really, and my team also means it. I was really impressed, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, listening to your what you shared about the performance of the agriculture sectors going forward, and I think the fact that you specially referred to women farmers is extremely encouraging to us, because that's the group that also needs that special attention and partnership. With the other thing I noticed yesterday as we drove, it was late in the evening through the island. Last time in October when I was here with my regional vice president, from the helicopter we saw nothing but brown earth. Even at night I could see that the nature is reclaiming the land and the forest cover is green again, and the debris has been cleared. So there are signs that there is life and hustle and bustle going forward. However, with the next hurricane season fast approaching and storms becoming more frequent, we need to, of course, sit together to see how best to support you in being more resilient and sustainable in the future. And today's signing is our support towards that, your goal. These two projects, Honorable Prime Minister, are part of a larger package of which we are hoping to bring up to $115 million very soon within this year. These two projects are $65 million. I'm very hopeful that in the coming few months we will be able to sign a third project agreement to provide you additional financing for the infrastructure side. That will be up to the tune of $31 million, and further on the geothermal side as well. So this does represent, from the World Bank side, the highest ever financing for Dominica, and it is because we believe that your needs, I would personally like to even do more, but you have other partners as well who are deeply committed, and I think we can really contribute to your aspirations for becoming a climate resilient nation. There are two things I wanted to highlight here. One is what I already alluded to, which is the looking at resilience in a much broader manner. Infrastructure, building back better is one aspect, your schools, your hospitals, your roads. Resilience in relation to environment and climatic changes, to your forestry, to your agriculture sector, natural resources. Resilience in relation to your macro economy, fiscal resilience, the financial sector's resilience, and most importantly, resilience in relationship to the individuals who are listening today, which is your biggest capital, your human capital. So those are the elements that from the World Bank side we are globally as well as regionally and in the Caribbean and in Dominica, we are very much geared towards working forward on. And my personal goal and my team's goal is to actually demonstrate the experience of Dominica as a case study to the world. And that's the offering I'm making to you today, Honorable Prime Minister, and that is why my team is here, so that we can together work with you to help you come closer to your aspirations of resilience and climatic resilience. The second point I wanted to mention is on the implementation. I think you mentioned very clearly, Honorable Minister, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Agriculture, that the whole issue will be delivering on time to the farmers. And that delivery is not only for the agriculture sector, but for the full program of support that you're bringing forward. And we do hope that we can work with you and other development partners to help in the implementation arrangements for this really large opportunity and a challenge of resources that are coming your way already. During this trip, as I mentioned, I've come with a large team of experts to discuss some of the lessons from other countries and globally, and to help and contribute to your strategy to build social, economic, and climatic resilience. I want to conclude by sharing with you that our commitment is fully. Dominica is a small island state of a group of countries that the World Bank Group has as our shareholders. For us, you are a very important shareholder because you are, we believe, at a cusp of demonstrating really important lessons to the world in how to move forward after a major crisis like you experienced in 2017 and also in 2015, Erica. We are committed to bring all our existing instruments, not just financial, but knowledge, engagement, and support to help you rebuild better. And on the side of the communications that you mentioned also, which we believe is extremely important, communicating regularly, communicating with data, communicating with information is extremely important. Last week, I was along with our management team in the U.S. in the Silicon Valley. We had gone to visit. The World Bank president is very keen for the World Bank to access and use technology for development in a much more deeper and broader way. So we visited the Silicon Valley, and we've also met with. We're at Google and Facebook headquarters, and when we were at the Google headquarters in their Project Loon, I was thinking of Dominica, and I said, this country was for 4 days completely cut off from the entire world. Can we partner with you to bring a certain resilience for the future, where at least the connectivity and the communication is maintained? I mentioned this example only to say, Prime Minister, that for us, helping you in all ways, out of the box, inside the box, we are there with you. I do want to, with the permission of Madam Chair Edwards, who's really organized a very good event, if I can take just a minute to ask two of my regional practice managers who actually own the projects that agriculture and on the disaster, the housing side, as well as the next project, to just say a few words, if they may, if with your permission. Can I do that? And with that, I will end and say that to me, this is a very personally special moment. I speak not as a World Bank bureaucrat, but as a human being, that it's a moment of pride, it's a moment of joy, it's a moment of optimism to be here, and this is something that comes from the heart, not from economic analysis or what the World Bank does everywhere, because I think it's a combination of our technical and economic work, all that we do, but we have to have the heart to move forward. So we bring that to the table today. I ask Mr. Ming Zhang. He's our. I'm sorry, I'm doing because this is out of the protocol. I'm sorry. Who's our regional practice manager covering Latin America countries plus the Caribbean on urban development, disaster risk management, and then after that, Ms. Preeti Ahuja, who's our regional manager covering Latin America and Caribbean for agriculture resilience building, to just say a few words. I also have Ms. Valerie Hickey here, who's our regional manager for a topic that's favorite to your heart, climate change, environment, and all those areas. We'll be having subsequent discussions. But first, Mr. Ming Zhang, you may want to come here. Just take a minute only.
Thanks a lot, Tasing, and thanks a lot, Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and the ministers and the cabinet members. Just following Tasing, I think I want to just express on behalf of our team who have been working here, starting actually before Hurricane Maria and the disaster vulnerability reduction project, and much more intensively after the hurricane, that I want to thank all the government officials and the counterparts for your dedication, for your hard work, and for being really fantastic partner during actually very, very difficult time. I think, as Tasing said, particularly for our colleagues working here, Johannes and Nick, it's, I can say I speak on their behalf, it's not only work, it's a personal dedication. I think all our colleagues working here are personally touched by the resilience of people in Dominica under really extremely challenging situations, and how you are doing so effectively to recover. So it's a privilege for us to work with you. I just want to highlight two things on the housing project that we are signing today. Indeed, actually, the World Bank, we have been working on disaster recovery in Caribbean islands for over many years, but this is actually the first significant project on housing recovery. So I think this is, we try to work together with the system you have and try to introduce some of the good practice that being around in the world on how to do housing recovery. So it is the first actually in the Caribbean. So that's one highlight. The other thing I want to highlight also, that as Tassim mentioned, the implementation challenge will continue to be enormous. And I think it's particularly, for these kind of projects, even for very big countries like India or Brazil, they quite often, more than half of the projects would encounter implementation difficulties, especially at the beginning. So these are not easy things to implement. And this is particularly a challenge for Dominica. In spite of all the capacity you have, it's just the number of people you're limited. You don't have as much human resource to draw on in like big countries like India or Brazil. So I think the implementation challenge will continue to be there, and we will be working very closely with the government on how to speed up the things. But I think also it's important to recognize it's not easy things to do. I think also maybe for the population listening to watching this event, it's important to recognize that despite all the efforts there, we probably will meet difficulties, but it's important that we work together, try to speed the implementation. Again, thank you very much, and it's really a privilege for the World Bank to be working with you.
Good morning. My name is Preeti Ahuja. I am the practice manager for food and agriculture in Latin America and the Caribbean region. Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, Madam Chair, and all other colleagues. We are delighted to be here with Tassin and other colleagues from the World Bank at this very important moment. I think Dominica is such a wonderful, special place. This is my first visit to the country, and when I landed and I drove from the airport to the hotel, it brought almost tears to my heart, and this is exactly what tears to my eyes. This is exactly what Tassin was saying, that this is not just an economic or technical endeavor for us. It's really something that we believe in, and we want to help Dominica achieve its goals. So it was with great joy that I heard of all the steps being taken already in terms of the replantings, in terms of building back the capacity. But there's a long road ahead. And we really need to focus now on how we can look at all the dimensions of preparing, planning, getting information, getting systems ready for the food system writ large, because the food system is not just something that stops at the farm gate. It's all the suppliers of inputs, all the infrastructure, it's all the processors, the exporters, the agro-logistics that are associated with the agricultural sector. So I think that if we take the food system in its entirety, this is so critical to get it right, because it's in so many ways an economic engine of the country. And we are delighted to be here to support and partner with you in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, and the practice managers for housing and for agriculture, and we look forward, of course, to your continued support. The recovery effort is led by the Prime Minister in his various capacities as Prime Minister, as Minister for Finance, and now also the Minister for Housing and Lands. I invite him to address us.
Thank you. I know many of you are wondering what is the significance of my purple ribbon. Today is World Lupus Day, and I am seeking to draw awareness of the citizens of Dominica on the situation where lupus is concerned, and many of our citizens who are suffering with this chronic non-communicable disease, and to ensure that we are aware of the symptoms and the challenges, because many who suffer this dreadful disease find it sometimes difficult because their employers are not sufficiently sympathetic with their prevailing condition. I had the good pleasure, along with my wife, to have met with the association last evening at our residence, and to hear from them firsthand their own personal challenges and the challenges of their colleagues who are suffering from this. And I intend to raise the matter with the Minister for Health, because the drugs which they use, which they need, is exorbitant in price, and it is prohibitive to many of them, so that we need to place these drugs on the ministry's list of procurement. And I have also, as Minister of Finance, committed to them, to the association, an amount of $20,000 each that will go towards education and outreach programs, and to draw greater awareness to the citizens of Dominica to this dreadful chronic non-communicable disease. So I invite all of us to read about it and to educate ourselves on this very important matter. I want to recognize in our presence, the Honorable Reginald Austri, our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries. Honorable Jones Drago is the Minister in the Ministry of Housing and Lands, my other cabinet colleagues present, and also our very dear friend and honorary citizen, Ms. Tahsin Said Khan, the Director of the Caribbean, Latin America and the Caribbean region, and to all our friends from the World Bank here present. Also Ambassador Edward Lambert, our Principal Advisor, Ambassador Steve Farrell, the Secretary of the Cabinet, permanent secretaries, and other government officials. I forgot to recognize the Federal Secretary, Edwards. And also our friend and advisor, Professor Avinash Prasad, our economic advisor, who has been exceptional in his support to Dominica. I want you to stand so that the rest of us will not know you. Okay, so we'll put you on Facebook and everything. The members of the media, and of course, our fellow citizens and residents listening via live radio and social media. I express to you a very good morning. Today, I believe, it's a very important day for us in Dominica. And it is a day for us to demonstrate, first of all, gratitude to the World Bank and to the staff of the World Bank. But it's also a source of hope for our citizens. We all know of the experiences which we went through with Maria, and we all have different stories to tell. But we also see the advent of Maria as an opportunity to build a stronger Dominica, not only in terms of the infrastructure, but also the human aspect of development, and also within our own financial systems. And this is why very literally a few days after the hurricane, because I addressed the United Nations on Saturday after the hurricane. So it told you how quickly we had to think of not only the present, but the future. And we felt that as a government, as a country, we had no choice but to pursue an agenda and a vision of building the world's first climate resilient nation. Now, for a small country like Dominica, this is a tall order, because we recognize our own limitations in terms of our capacity as an economy to borrow, in terms of our limited human resource base and capabilities, and also recognizing the timelines that are required to achieving this lofty goal. But as the Prime Minister of this country, I am beyond convincing that we have no choice but to pursue that agenda. I know all of us, including myself in this country, would want to see things move much faster and quicker. But with the enormity of the task which we're faced with, and our vision to create the world's first climate resilient nation, it's going to take time. And we in Dominica need to wholly support the efforts of the government and the country to achieving our goal. Because shortcuts are things we should avoid doing. There must be proper policies in place, there must be proper planning in place, and there must be good systems to implement those programs and policies. So in everything we do, we have to ensure that there is proper planning and execution of those tasks. And we'll recall in the country, after the passage of Tropical Storm Erica in 2015, we declared as a government we would build back better. and we took into consideration the available technology and engineering advice in what is required to build back better. And we as a country recognize that some of the interventions which we put in place after tropical storm America survived in large measure the ravages of Hurricane Maria. And we speak of the West Bridge, where not even the paint was affected on the railings. And we speak of the housing project which is under construction in Bellevue Chopin, where the only thing that fell was the scaffolding that were up at the time of the hurricane. And even with the planning of the city, the Roseau Enhancement Project, which we have planned and plans were available before the hurricane. The whole idea with this was, one, to mitigate against flooding of the city, so the construction of new river defense walls. It involves the use of a particular type of technology that will slow the flow of the river, the Roseau River, and have it in a cascading manner. And it involved not only new road surface and new sidewalks, but also undergrounding of the electrical lines and the telephone lines. Because our challenge after Hurricane Maria in respect to energy was not necessarily an issue of generation, it was an issue of transmission and distribution. So in the whole building back concept and building greater resilience, we may not have all of the monies, because it's a costly exercise to underground the electrical lines and the telephone lines. But we believe that in critical areas of the country where greater economic activity take place, we could start with those areas and gradually move towards ensuring the whole island. And obviously, because of our terrain, we will not be able to fully deal with the transmission lines, but in communities where the distribution lines are undergrounded, it is easy to restore energy and electricity to those communities. So I really want to thank the World Bank, because everybody knows, and the World Bank and the whole world knows of my public criticisms of the World Bank in the past. But I believe I'm a fair person, and if something is going right, I will say so, and if it's not, I will also say so. And I say to you, Madam Khan, that we are extremely pleased with the demonstration of not only a commitment based on the bank's mandate, but the emotional connection which yourself and your staff have placed on this mission in Dominica. And in my visit to the World Bank in October, I believe, I was extremely touched by the commitment and the demonstration of concern and care which the entire bank management and staff of the bank demonstrated, from the president down to the technical people. And for this country, and myself personally, will always be eternally grateful for your efforts. Really want to thank you. I believe one of the areas that we will certainly be leaning heavily on the World Bank for is on the area of implementation. Yes, we have the Climate Resilient Execution Agency of Dominica, which will have its part to play. But there are certain elements of the resilience building which the existing state apparatus will have to undertake. But what I always say to our citizens, we have to address the issues associated with Maria, but the state must also continue to function as it did prior to Maria. So there are things which the state has to do, and with limited capacity, and with officers having numerous tasks to deal with on a daily basis, it's going to be impossible. And we will assign certain actions to the CREED but there's many actions which the existing state apparatus will have to implement. And we will speak about this later in the roundtable discussion, but this is an area we'll be leaning on the World Bank in a dramatic way. And you've been able to assist us since the hurricane of implementing some of the interventions and preparing the necessary documentation for that purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the plan of our country to build the world's first climate resilient nation has taken cognizance of the international community. People are buying into this vision. So it is left for us in Dominica to be united in purpose. We will all have different views of what should be done, when it should be done, how it should do it. But we must not lose sight of the bigger picture. In this state of our rebuilding, there should be no place whatsoever for parochial partisan consideration. That every leader in this country must be forthright with his views, but also honest and transparent with his recommendations and criticism. Because this will certainly make us stronger. The world is with us. It is left for us to be with ourselves in Dominica. So while we are rebuilding, we also are on the dawn of another hurricane season. And we have met in the cabinet along with the various government officials to ensure that we have systems in place, taking into consideration the challenges which we had during Maria, and see how we can correct and address some of those challenges towards this. There are still many homes that are still without a roof. This government has approved thus far with its own resources about 50 million EC dollars, and an additional 20 million EC dollars will be approved by the Minister of Finance today to continue to assist residents with their roofing. We've also taken a decision, and we're hoping to sign the agreement with the Government Housing Loan Board and the Aid Bank to put in $5 million each to these institutions to on-lend to public and private sector citizens at 2%, with a maximum borrowing of $50,000 to assist them with fixing their homes. But additionally, over $17 million of building materials were procured and have been distributed to homeowners to assist with reconstruction. We have gotten some help from the People's Republic of China for re-roofing, and there are many NGOs here in Dominica who also assisted. We've had capacity constraints, not having sufficient tradesmen in the country because roofs require certain technical competencies. We have recruited teams, construction teams from St. Lucia, from Barbados, from Trinidad and Tobago, who are on island assisting in a commercial way with the roofing efforts. And we're hoping by next week, I've been told, to receive the technicians from the Republic of Cuba to assist us further. In terms of new homes, we have, as everybody knows, we have entered into a contract to build 1,000 climate resilient homes that could withstand a Category 5 hurricane, and have taken into consideration the seismic activity in the region. So far, we have been able to move vulnerable residents into homes in Point Michel, and in the next week and a half or thereabout, we will move in 10 families in the Canlago territory into these homes. And I have given the Ministry of Housing a mandate that by the 3rd of November of this year, we should build at least 400 of these 1,000 homes for our residents. And we're pushing forward to that. We have also entered into agreements to build some 400 apartment units, and work has started in many communities in the east of Dominica, where these homes will also serve for families and the community as hurricane shelters. But we have a challenge in respect to some communities not having adequate hurricane shelters for the 2018 hurricane season. And we are appealing to the general public, citizens with private homes, to avail themselves of the opportunity for us to engage you in utilizing your private homes as hurricane shelters. I can say publicly that as I have offered my private home in my constituency as a hurricane shelter, and we will put in place all of the necessary arrangements in the event that my fellow villagers would require a safer place to see the hurricane through. So we call on Rest of Dominica to do likewise. For agriculture, we're very keen, as the Minister for Agriculture has indicated, what we've done since the hurricane. And we want to thank the World Bank for making the funds available, because this provided tremendous motivation to the farming community. And I am satisfied, based on my movement across the country, that farmers utilize the money on the farms. And I really want to thank the farmers who received, and the fisher folk who received these funds, and for investing these monies into your farms. $10,000 for a farmer is a significant sum, and it can make a huge difference in terms of your earnings. And I'm very happy for this, and we want to thank again the World Bank for this. One of the things the Minister may not have mentioned is that we have started, and he may have mentioned it, we have started exporting fresh agricultural produce to the region. Crops planted after the hurricane. Shipments started leaving Dominica in November, December of 2017. And the increasing numbers of agricultural produce leaving the country. And the Minister mentioned about the white potatoes. And it is something that the government is going to put tremendous attention to, and to look at the science involved in causing these potatoes to be grown year-round, because now we have it as a seasonal crop. And we have done similar interventions in the cultivation of yams. Yams used to be seasonal, and with new technology and science, it is now year-round, a year-round crop. But the important thing about the white potatoes, as I've seen in Belleville-Chopin and Girardel, and in Calibishi, the heights of Calibishi, is that it is a potentially great opportunity to employ women in agriculture. And I have asked the Minister for Agriculture to identify in the first instance 50 women in Dominica who will be empowered to plant white potatoes. And the thing is that this can be, as I've seen in Belleville-Chopin, planted in the yards of the families, right at their homes. So they don't have to go far in the mountains to plant it. They could stay home, take care of the children, cook the children's lunch and dinners, and work on the farm at the same time. And so we'll be targeting these women farmers and to empower them greatly. So there's going to be a huge focus on women in agriculture, especially in rural Dominica. The Toloma farmers in Dalis, they have an organization. We're seeking to empower them in that regard. So we are very grateful for this massive investment. 25 million EC dollars, US dollars, US dollars is 67.5 million EC dollars. And for a small country like Dominica, this is a significant investment. And the areas that we have submitted to the World Bank for consideration, obviously all of this came for consultation with farmers and previous studies we've done and consultations we've done. We believe if these areas, these interventions are properly implemented, we can see a huge leap upwards for agriculture in Dominica, and addressing and also increasing the contribution of agriculture to our GDP, and reducing the food import bill and bringing in more foreign exchange into our country. And I agree with the Minister that we need to improve on the statistical collection of data in respect to agriculture, because I've maintained publicly, because I have no part to play as Minister of Finance in the preparation of the statistical report, and therefore I can criticize it, as I've done. But I always believe, and it's not a personal criticism of the staff or anybody there, I always believe that we are not reporting adequately the impact of agriculture on the economy. And we need to address the issue of the collection of data. We had a program, AIMS, Agriculture Information Management System, but it was never carried through. And this is why we created the agricultural regions. And the intention was that the extension officers from the field would have a region, they would input the data in the offices in that particular region, and it will be transmitted automatically to the central system in Roseau, so that we have information, data at our fingertips. Projections of how much dashing we will have in the next 6 months or 7 months, and likewise and so forth. So we need to pay particular attention to that. I'm happy that we will be doing so. We look forward to the conclusion and discussions and negotiations for the additional financing for the East Coast roads. Some $31 million will be added to what is already available for the East Coast road. The East Coast is a highly vulnerable part of the country, and with good engineering intervention, we believe we can mitigate against the hazards and the dangers there. We have started, we're a bit slow in starting, but thank God we have started the interventions under the disaster reduction, vulnerability reduction program for the East Coast roads. And we are already seeing and feeling the difference of those interventions. And those interventions have been targeted based on the most vulnerable areas on the East Coast. And with the additional resources, we'll be able to do a longer span of roads and to certainly enhance the resilience and to eradicate the vulnerabilities of those areas. I also want to say to the World Bank, we words really cannot express our gratitude to you. You have demonstrated that we can, if we work much closer together, we can move things much faster. And this is what we have done. So I agree with you that Dominica can be a case study. And we're prepared to offer ourselves as that to the rest of the world and to make a small contribution to this. But you have in us a partner that's prepared to listen, a partner that's open to suggestions and ideas, and a partner that you can work with. And I was saying to some people jokingly that it appears that the World Bank is quickly becoming the Dominica Bank. We're very grateful for this. In respect to housing, which is another area of priority under this project, because we'll be signing an agreement for $65 million. In EC dollars is $175.5 million. And 40 million of this will go towards housing, 108 million EC dollars. Because we have projected that we will need to build about 5,000 homes for our citizens in order to remove them from vulnerabilities. Because what these disasters show or expose is the true vulnerabilities of many families and communities of our country. And in many of these instances, if not all, it is not that people would want to build in the areas that they have built or the type of homes that they have built. But one of the main or the basic responsibilities of the head of the household is to provide a shelter for his family. And he will do so with the means that are available to him. Over the years, we've tried to regularize the number of people and improve their housing. But there are many families in Dominica, if the state does not intervene, they will remain vulnerable for the rest of their lives. And so we believe that we have a fundamental responsibility as a government to provide for those vulnerable people in our country. And this is why we're focusing with the World Bank also on housing. So if you look at it, we have identified some of the key areas for intervention and submitted this to the World Bank for its consideration, and we're very grateful for this. So we have a package of a total of 115 million US dollars, 50 million of which will be grants from the World Bank. So this is a significant gift and a demonstration of true commitment by the World Bank to Dominica. And I say to people, to my citizens, that people are not necessarily helping us because we're affected by a hurricane. People are helping us because we have expressed a particular vision to build the world's first climate resilient nation. And this vision conforms with the mandates of these institutions and governments. And they are prepared to assist us in achieving this, because there are countries in the world who have not gotten that kind of commitment that we've gotten, because they have not expressed that vision and that mission of building greater resilience. Because for many people, hurricane comes, it's a matter of knocking some things back together and okay, we're ready for the next hurricane season. We in Dominica, the leadership in Dominica, we believe that the phenomenon of climate change is real. We have lived it, we have experienced it. The scientists are saying that the climatic condition will continue to be more severe. And so if we know these things, the question is, what are we going to do to prepare ourselves? And this is what we're seeking to do. It's not going to happen overnight. Because as I've said publicly, my role as the current leader of the country is to set the foundation. Future generations will have to put up the walls. Another may have to put the roof. But we have started nonetheless. And we're committed to that journey. We're not going to make any shortcuts, because politically, it is better for my party if we make shortcuts and have everything back and has a facade of resilience. But my conscience and the conscience of this government will not allow us to play partisan politics with the lives and the future of this country. So we're committed to this, as we've seen our commitment to our strong fiscal policies. You know, if we say we'll do something, we'll do it. And just to say to you, for example, we placed we issued a treasury bill just this week, and it was oversubscribed by $9 million. Oversubscribed by $9 million at an interest rate of 2%. Now, this is a country who 2 years ago was affected, 90% of its GDP was affected, and who just last year, 226% of its GDP was affected. Yet still, there are shrewd investors out there in the region, because people in the private sector, their only motivation is profits, who are demonstrating their confidence in this government and this country by investing in our country. And I think this is not something that we should set aside as a country. It shows that, notwithstanding the fact that we may be on our knees, there are people who believe that we can get back on our feet. And we will get back on our feet. Because in a disaster like this, you will have investors fleeing away as far as possible. But we have investors flocking to our country. And it speaks to the fact that over the years, this government has developed a reputation of its seriousness, the responsible manner in which we have conducted the affairs of the state, and the transparent character of this government. Because in respect to the treasury bills, and we have issued several of them in the past years, we have not only provided the potential investors with the prospectus on the state of things in Dominica, we have published all our economic and fiscal indicators on our website to be scrutinized by anybody who wishes to scrutinize it. And I have heard investors say it's the first time they have seen a government so transparent with its information. I have had the occasion to go on the road to promote our treasury bills and interact with regional private sector entities. And so people are calling us to ask us, when next are we going to issue a treasury bill, because they would like to be part of it. And I think this is a good sign for us in Dominica, and it's something we need to be proud of, but also protect, because if a small country like ours, with literally zero fiscal space, I've always said to our citizens, yes, we have to be responsive to your needs, but it is also important that we are responsible, because with a simple bad decision can send this country's economy to one of our precipices that are existing in our country. So we have to be very careful with this. We assure you, Madam Khan, as always, we shall spend these funds wisely, properly, and in accordance with the rules of the World Bank. And we give you that assurance. And as your rules require, you will come to Dominica from time to time to have an audit done independent of ourselves. And every single page of every single book shall be open to you for scrutiny. I will give you that public commitment. I want really to express to you and to the leadership of the bank and to the staff of the bank how grateful we are. This is indeed a red letter day for our country, and we are very grateful for this. And we are setting the cornerstone with the World Bank. And I believe it is a cornerstone which the good Lord will no doubt bless, and we shall not labor in vain. We shall not labor in vain, because we not only have friends like yourself, but we also believe that the good Lord is among us and is with us. And really and truly, He is the one leading the charge of rebuilding this country. I see myself and the cabinet as really instruments of this. Because I'm not sure whether you know, Madam Khan, on the side, that when I leave this job, I shall be moving to the church. Yes, I intend to build my own church in Dominica, but targeting the non-church goers. And in my own market survey, I recognize that I will very well have the largest church in Dominica. because so the venue for the church might be a challenge, but I'm hoping that I could use the National Stadium to have this. But I'm very grateful to us. We this $65 million US, a total of 175.5 million AC dollars. These two interventions will go to agriculture and housing, and there are several other components with the balance of the funds which will be put in place. These, I believe, if they're properly implemented, can have a huge impact on our country and the sustainability of our country. Because with the resilience building, we want to ensure that there are sustainable livelihoods, that people can earn a living out of this. And later today we'll speak about the forest and how can the World Bank assist us in a reforestation program to reinstate the ecosystems. Because what I would like to say to Dominicans, we must not set aside the importance of the forest. And we have to move very quickly with this because we can have serious long-term implications for our country in terms of our source of water, and the pollination of our tree crops. We can have serious issues on this. So the forest is critical. And I'm hoping that we can speak to this, because we're going to need in Dominica from you, a team here to assist us in overseeing the forest program. And this is why, as recognized in the new dispensation of this government, we have created a ministry focusing on environmental issues. With a minister focusing on environmental issues, we will be strengthening that ministry with adequate technical staff to advance those critical interventions on behalf of the people of Dominica. So we could go on to speak for a very long time because we are so grateful for this. We are, and we shall be eternally grateful for this. And we place ourselves at the disposal of the bank, whatever we can do to assist the bank in advancing some of its concepts and some of its ideas and ideals to the rest of the region and the world. We are available to play our small part wherever we can. I want to thank you again, Madam Khan, and to your staff, and please convey to the President, the Vice President, the Board of Directors, our profound and profuse gratitude for this offer of help, tangible offers of help, and the speed at which the board reacted and the management and the staff reacted to our challenge. Because when I got to Washington, you know, you already had all of the documents on the table, you know, waiting for us, you know, and I think Madam Khan recognized that we may not have eaten for days, and she also offered us lunch at the World Bank, you know. So, and
that's my mother's training.
you know, but I want Dominicans to really understand the support and to appreciate the support that the World Bank has provided to us. Not only since the hurricane, but more so since the hurricane. And with the World Bank leading the charge in that regard, it has really motivated many other benefactors to come in to assist us. So you are a valued partner in our effort to building the world's first climate resilient nation. At the end of the day, it is left for us in Dominica. The success of this endeavor reside with us, and it's important for us to all come forward and to offer our human resources, our talent and skills to the service of our country. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for your address and, of course, for guiding us through this process of becoming the first climate resilient country in the world. At this time, the financing agreements will be signed. The Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance will sign on behalf of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Ms. Tassim Said Khan will sign on behalf of the World Bank. Will be assisted in the process by the legal officer of the World Bank.
I'd like to start by saying, please tell me when your church is ready, because I'm moving down.
All right, excellent. I am a first member.
And he's wearing a purple tie.
And I'm working. It serves a dual purpose. I wore it because, in honor of the flag of Dominica. Now that I've got the ribbon, I'm just claiming it serves a dual purpose.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're signing the housing recovery project first.
What a pleasure to be doing this. It's wonderful. At the camera, okay.
Sure.
No?
Yes, there's one more.
And then we shake hands, yes.
The second one is the Emergency Agriculture, Livelihoods, and Climate Resilience Project.
Thank you.
Just one more signature.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
We will.
I will, that will do.
We will,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. No, that's super fast. So congratulations, Prime Minister.
Thank you, thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. You've done a really fantastic organization of this. Thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister and members of Cabinet, Ms. Khan and the staff of the bank, government officials, media, ladies and gentlemen, it is simply my pleasure now to thank all of you for being present and for making this event an eventful one. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Yes, very soon, yes.